What if the greatest screams ever filmed were buried beneath decades of dust and forgotten VHS shelves? This is not your typical horror countdown. These are the cursed children of horror's past, now resurrected on YouTube and Tubi for free. Forgotten classics that still have the power to terrify. You just have to know where to look. Number 14. The Nest, 1987. Beneath the sunlit shores of a sleepy New England town lies a secret more terrifying than any ghost or demon. In The Nest, we are introduced to genetically mutated cockroaches with a taste for human flesh. It sounds absurd on paper, but this slimy insect nightmare was a forgotten gem of practical effects and pulpy B-movie horror that hit all the right grotesque notes. Released in 1987 by Roger Corman's Concord Pictures, it was largely dismissed as trashy schlock. But modern horror fans have returned to it with new appreciation. The atmosphere is thick, the gore is brutal, and the creature designs are disgusting in the best possible way. You can feel the old-school charm in every scene. The effects team pushed the limits of low-budget body horror, turning what could have been a laughable monster movie into a genuinely unnerving descent into infestation madness. Now, streaming for free on Tubi. The Nest is a must-watch for fans of creepy crawlers and forgotten practical horror glory. Number 13. The Ninth Gate, 1999. Johnny Depp wanders through shadowy libraries and decadent mansions in The Ninth Gate, a slow-burning occult thriller that was misread on release and later embraced by cult circles. Directed by Roman Polanski, the film follows a rare book dealer tracking down a satanic manuscript said to summon the devil himself. The tension is slow, the dread is creeping, and the atmosphere is intoxicating. Audiences in the late 90s expected another action-heavy supernatural film, but what they got instead was something more cerebral and seductive. The film's meticulous pacing and strange dreamlike logic frustrated mainstream viewers, but those who stuck with it discovered a puzzle box of infernal imagery, hidden clues, and esoteric power plays. The European settings and gothic score deepen the mystery, while Depp's detached performance adds a layer of ambiguity. Now free to watch on YouTube and often featured on Tubi, this forgotten classic rewards viewers who appreciate their horror with a whisper rather than a scream. Number 12. Bloodstone Subspecies 2, 1993. Deep within the crypts of Romanian castles, the vampire Radu returns in Bloodstone Subspecies 2, a direct sequel that improves upon the original in every way. Full Moon Features produced this gothic vampire tale with an unusually rich atmosphere for a low-budget horror series. The result is a shadow-drenched story of obsession, possession, and blood-soaked legacy. Anders Hove's portrayal of Radu is grotesque and tragic, his elongated fingers and tortured voice, creating one of horror's most overlooked monsters. The film was shot on location in actual Eastern European castles, adding authenticity to the chilling visuals. The Bloodstone itself serves as both MacGuffin and metaphor, pulsing with ancient evil. While the first Subspecies film laid the groundwork, this sequel refined the tone, visuals, and mythology, making it a fan favorite among genre purists. Often forgotten outside hardcore horror circles, it is now streaming on Tubi, where it stands as a stark reminder of what low-budget horror can achieve with the right setting, performance, and ambition. Number 11. Return of the Living Dead 3, 1993. What happens when love meets death and then refuses to let go? Return of the Living Dead 3 is the Romeo and Juliet of zombie cinema, a gruesome yet strangely beautiful tale of reanimation, addiction, and devotion. The third entry in the punk horror series takes a sharp left turn, abandoning slapstick for tragic romance. Kurt loses his girlfriend Julie in a motorcycle accident and uses a military experiment to bring her back. But she returns with a hunger for brains and a need to mutilate herself just to dull the pain. Melinda Clarke's performance is unforgettable, part tortured soul, part undead anti-hero, wrapped in glass and steel. Director Brian Yuzna crafts a surprisingly emotional story, layered with body horror and cyberpunk imagery. It was a box office failure and later buried in obscurity, but it found new life through cult audiences and now streams free on Tubi. It is a horror film with heart and steel spikes through it. Number 10. The Haunted Palace, 1963. Before Lovecraft was a household name, Roger Corman brought his eerie universe to life in The Haunted Palace. Though marketed as Edgar Allan Poe, the film is actually based on the case of Charles Dexter Ward and stars Vincent Price in one of his most dualistic performances. He plays both a nobleman and the possessed ancestor seeking revenge through generations. The fog-drenched village cursed with disfigurements and the sinister Necronomicon all deliver the Lovecraftian atmosphere with style. Barbara Steele adds even more gothic gravitas. While Corman's Poe films were celebrated, this one slipped into the shadows due to its hybrid source material. But today, horror historians and genre lovers see it as an early blueprint for cosmic horror, done with practical sets and poetic dread. Available now for free on Tubi, The Haunted Palace is a misty descent into ancestral madness and eldritch horror long overdue for rediscovery. Number 9. Wolf Girl, 1999. Wolf Girl is the kind of bizarre horror film that slipped through the cracks, yet lingers in memory like a strange dream. Also known as Blood Moon, this Canadian oddity blends sideshow surrealism with medical body horror. The story centers on Tara, a teenage girl covered in hair due to a rare condition who performs in a traveling freak show. But when she begins an experimental treatment to become normal, the side effects unleash something far more savage than anyone expected. As she transforms physically and emotionally, the film dives into identity fear and the cruelty of society toward anything outside the norm. Grace Jones lends her eerie presence to the traveling troupe, while Victoria Sanchez gives Tara a heartbreaking vulnerability. The film's low budget limits its visual flair, but enhances its raw emotional core. Often forgotten or dismissed as a freak show, Curiosity Wolf Girl deserves a second life for its fearless exploration of monstrosity from within. Now available to stream on Tubi, this offbeat tale is a forgotten gem of late 90s horror with teeth, claws, and unexpected heart. Number 8. Colobos, 1999. Long before reality TV went full horror, Colobos anticipated the genre's descent into madness. This obscure slasher flick follows 5 strangers brought together to live in a house under constant surveillance. But instead of fame, they find bloody traps, a masked killer, and a descent into psychological fragmentation. Released at the tail end of the 90s horror boom, Colobos got lost among Scream clones, yet it offers something far stranger. It mixes found footage aesthetic with surreal editing, unreliable narration, and visual horror straight out of Italian giallo. The score is unsettling, the kills inventive, and the final twist leaves viewers questioning everything they just saw. Colobos was too weird for mainstream audiences, yet not art house enough for critics. But time has been kind to its ambition. Now free on Tubi, this forgotten thriller feels more relevant than ever as we continue to blur the line between performance and reality. For those who like their slashers served with paranoia and fractured memory, Colobos is a disturbing rediscovery. Number 7. Night of the Living Dead, 1968. George Romero's Night of the Living Dead is no longer forgotten, but it is often taken for granted. Public domain status led to countless poor-quality uploads and endless parodies, yet few remember how raw, revolutionary, and terrifying it was on first release. Filmed in grainy black and white with a cast of unknowns, this indie shocker introduced the modern zombie. But more than just undead horror, it brought real-world fear into the living room. The Vietnam War loomed, the civil rights movement burned, and here was a black hero shot by authorities in the final scene. Romero never pulled punches. The low budget created claustrophobic terror. The farmhouse setting felt both ordinary and apocalyptic. Every creaking door and moaning corpse feels handmade and urgent. Now available in multiple remastered versions for free on YouTube, Night of the Living Dead remains a cornerstone of horror and social commentary. It is not just a zombie film. It is a scream from the soul of a country at war with itself. Number 6. Return of the Living Dead Part 2, 1988. Following a cult hit like Return of the Living Dead was never going to be easy. Part 2 arrived with the same slapstick gore tone, but critics were less forgiving. Over time, however, it has found its audience, especially among horror fans who love chaotic practical effects and tongue-in-cheek scares. This time, the toxic gas is unleashed again on a small town, turning locals into brain-hungry zombies. James Karen and Tom Matthews return in almost the same roles, but played for maximum absurdity. While the film lacks the punk energy of the original, it leans harder into cartoonish horror. children fight zombies, adults are eaten with comedic timing, and the graveyard scenes deliver gooey undead fun. Critics panned it as a retread, but viewers today appreciate its goofy charm and commitment to slime-covered excess. Often free to stream on YouTube, Part 2 is the guilty pleasure of the franchise. It may not have brains, but it sure has guts. Number 5. Critters 4. 1992. When Critters went to space, the franchise took its strangest turn. Critters 4 beams the mischievous alien creatures aboard a derelict space station and leans into sci-fi horror territory. Gone are the small-town attacks. This time, it is cold metal corridors, eerie silence, and xenomorph-style chaos with a gremlin twist. Don Keith Opper returns as Charlie the hapless bounty hunter, now awakening from cryo-sleep to discover the critters are loose again. The film also features a young Angela Bassett delivering a strong performance long before her Oscar nods. Despite its shoestring budget and recycled sets from other productions, Critters 4 maintains a goofy charm. The puppetry work keeps the creatures expressive and disgusting, and the film's shift into claustrophobic sci-fi horror gives it a unique flavor among its peers. Originally dismissed as a franchise cash grab, it now stands as a weirdly enjoyable anomaly. Often streaming free on YouTube, this entry is pure space trash horror in the best way. Number 4. Carnival of Souls, 1962. Carnival of Souls is a dream trapped in celluloid, a low-budget ghost story that transcended its limitations to become one of horror's most unsettling experiences. Directed by industrial filmmaker Herc Harvey on a shoestring budget, this strange tale follows a woman who survives a car crash and begins experiencing eerie visions and ghostly encounters. Her world becomes increasingly surreal, detached from reality, as she is drawn to a desolate, abandoned pavilion. With minimal dialogue and an organ score that seeps into your bones, the film builds dread not with jump scares, but with existential isolation. It plays like a Twilight Zone episode stretched into a trance. Upon release, it was barely noticed and largely forgotten. But decades later, it was rediscovered by critics, filmmakers, and horror historians who hailed it as a foundational work of psychological horror. Its influence is seen in David Lynch, George Romero, and countless indie films. Now restored and freely available on YouTube, Carnival of Souls remains a chilling elegy for the in-between spaces of life and death, where no one can hear you scream because you are already gone. Number 3. The Brain That Would Not Die, 1962. Science and madness collide in The Brain That Would Not Die, a gloriously trashy and deeply unsettling artifact from early 60s horror. The story is as bizarre as it sounds. A brilliant surgeon crashes his car, decapitates his fiancée, and preserves her head in a lab while searching for a new body. What follows is a grotesque blend of misogyny, monster horror, and mad scientist tropes played out in seedy bars and shadowy corridors. The decapitated head, played by Virginia Leith, becomes the film's soul, trapped in pain and disgust, whispering dark thoughts and telepathically controlling a creature in the closet. The effects are crude, the acting is often wooden, but the result is unforgettable. Banned in some areas and ignored in others, it was dismissed as grindhouse fodder. Today, it is hailed as camp horror gold, with a feminist reading waiting beneath the surface. Streaming free on YouTube in various prints, The Brain That Would Not Die is a deranged little classic that demands to be seen to be believed. Number 2. Kill List, 2011. At first, Kill List feels like a gritty British crime film. 2 hitmen, 1 final job. But then the shadows twist, the murders become ritualistic, and the dread turns cosmic. What starts as a hitman thriller evolves into something ancient and horrifying. Director Ben Wheatley delivers a slow burn that erupts into one of the most disturbing finales in modern horror. The performances feel raw and lived in, the violence is sudden and brutal, and the clues to a hidden pagan underworld are scattered with care. Kill List is not just a horror film, it is a descent. Its ambiguity leaves viewers shaken, grasping for meaning in the silence that follows the final scene. Critics praised it on release, but its disturbing tone kept it from wide appeal. Over time, however, it became a whispered recommendation among horror fans who seek more than gore, who want trauma woven into every frame. Now streaming for free on Tubi, Kill List is not just a forgotten classic, it is a cursed revelation waiting to be summoned by the brave. Number 1. The Devil Rides Out, 1968. When Hammer Films unleashed The Devil Rides Out, it marked a rare horror film that dared to tackle Satanism with elegance, intellect, and urgency. Christopher Lee stars not as a villain, but as a heroic scholar of the occult battling a secret satanic cult across the English countryside. Based on the Dennis Wheatley novel and adapted by Richard Matheson, the film elevates the genre with literary ambition and relentless pacing. Rituals are performed, dark forces are conjured, and the devil himself appears in a terrifying silhouette. The effects may seem quaint today, but the sincerity and conviction of the performances sell the stakes. Director Terence Fisher crafts a gothic world of candles, pentagrams, and spiritual warfare that still feels potent. The film was overlooked in its day due to its religious subject matter and lack of gore, but modern viewers find it a masterclass in atmospheric occult horror. Now, free on YouTube through classic film channels, The Devil Rides Out is a hidden Hammer masterpiece that deserves worship. Forgotten no longer, these horror classics live again through digital resurrection. From brain jars to demonic rituals, each one offers a unique scream worth revisiting. Stream them while you can on Tubi or YouTube. And if you dare enter their world, tonight share this list with fellow horror believers. The cult is growing,